is the reference geometry. Again, one of those things that's called different names in different places. So in Fusion, it's called construction geometry. In SolidWorks, it's called reference geometry. Yes, it's the same thing. It's extra things that we need sometimes. But specifically, points, axes, and planes. So the one that we usually want is kind of a plane. So let's say if we want to cut off the corner of this piece, you have to be able to find those corners and cut it off. And so doing...
We can't see the piece you're holding up.
Where's mine? There we go. So doing this piece here, cutting off this corner, how would you do that? Could you draw it here and extrude down?
I think I did that one. I think I did it 2 different ways.
Yeah, and actually you can do a loft there, so you could draw a triangle there and loft to the point.
I did a 3-point plane.
Yep, so that's what we're talking about today, is a 3-point plane, how to create planes. Same thing with this one. If it's cutting straight through, depending on what angles are important, we could, create a sketch here, and loft between them. We could also just create a plane in the middle, draw our V, and extrude both ways to make the cut. And that way we can adjust the angle of the cut also. So maybe if it's not always a 45, maybe sometimes we want it steeper or whatever, we can adjust that with a plane that's angled through there. And also kind of going into, I think going into the mirroring and things, having a plane in the middle of your part is usually a good thing. So you saw that on the sweep with the guides. You had to create a plane that was over centered in your part. So being able to kind of either set up your sketch so that you've already got the origin planes in the middle of your part. That's why I like to start a lot of things with center rectangles. But sometimes you have something else on the side that you need to mirror across. And so being able to create a plane there is a good thing also. So like if I wanted to eat holes on equal sides of this slot right here, then I'd create a plane there to mirror across. Okay, does that make sense? And so that's what all these are. And so these are all just different ways to get to points. And so with a point, we need a point. So we need something to identify one exact spot. So kind of a few different options. So we can stick a point at the vertex, so at the corner of something. So if I have I can hit vertex, I can stick it right in the corner there. I don't know why you did that.
Can both those point, either sketch point or that point, work for the whole command?
Yeah. And so, so if I had a point here on the face somewhere, I could use that as my starting point for the whole command. And so, but you can do vertex, I can do a point at 2 edges, so like that edge and that edge, and it's not going to let me use the, so I could do even that plane and that edge, and if those things, where those would intersect, it's going to give me a point. It's not one I use too often. Point through 3 planes, we can use that sometimes, and sometimes these will be used in combination. So if I wanted to find a point that's on this edge, like an inch from here, that's when I want to kind of use the combination thing. So maybe I can start with an offset plane, which you already did, right? So the offset plane, click here and tell it to go back into the part 1 inch. So negative goes into the part, right? And now I can do a point through a point and a plane. So, or through an edge and a plane. So plane, the edge, and now I get a point where those two intersect. So this is kind of a more common use of it, is I can find that point there, And then maybe I need to find a point that's, and maybe I want to go from there to here to there. And I'll cut off that corner. So now I can go in and do a plane from 3 points and create it from there to there to there. And now I have this inclined plane here. And now I can take that and I can do either a sketch there, or I can go into modify and I can split my body. So I can just cut my part in half. So that it keeps that other one here, but I can just expand here and I can see it. And so I can just turn it off. Or you can delete it. Now it takes it out. And then of course, turn off all those construction lines. Sometimes you can get a lot of them. And you can also go into here and turn them off one at a time. So like, maybe I only want to keep that one. But now if I go back and I edit this plane here and I pull it back, it's going to adjust that cut. Okay. So if you're doing something where you're trying to cut off the corner or something, this is a common way to do it. Is create a work plane and then do it like that. Even if I wanted to, you know, so instead of doing that, if I create a, so instead of the work plane, but maybe if I do that, now I can do my loft from there to that point. From here to that point to cut it off. And again, this is something that I hadn't thought about before. And now I can still change that plane location, and it's going to affect where that's cutting. So that's one that I'd always just done with creating a work plane, because that's the way I was taught to do it. And then after realizing with, like, oh yeah, with Loft we can just do that. That's a really easy way to make this cut with Loft. It's flat sides. That's a good tool to use. Another one of those little light bulb moments 30 years later. So any questions on that? So other good ones are, they use a lot, are playing at an angle. So if I want to make it kind of go around this edge, but I want it to be angled down. So now I can sketch on this, and I know I'm at a set angle from the surface.
You can offset that plane.
And I can offset that plane. And so, yeah, so if I did like a plane at an angle, I don't know, 15 degrees here, and now I can create an offset of that. And now I can do stuff with it. But one of these things also is I can have this one be at that angle, and then I can make another one that's like, but I could sketch here and then, you know, make a cut and extrude it, and I can go to object and pick that plane. So now the back of that thing, it doesn't have to be perpendicular. It could be at a different cut. So that's another kind of common thing, is we can make a plane to go up to. And so before using the offsets, I'd always do that. I'd make a plane and then extrude from this plane to this plane. Because we can do that too. We can say extrude there from object to object, right? So that used to be how I do it before I did just the offset. But now I can go to something that's at a different angle. And it couldn't be just that. It could be, tilted the other way also. But when I make this one an offset plane, and I say -0.5, which way is it measuring? Is it measuring along the edge? No, it's measuring that way. And so here's where if you want it to be a set distance along that edge, but both at an angle, you might have to, maybe make a work point here along this edge. So another way to do it, yes?
Well, my thought would be to make a line on the face that's closest, like the face of the shape,
That's-
and then make the
That's
plane
what.
with that line.
That's where I was going next.
Ah, there we go.
And so some people say, well, I can always just create a sketch and then draw whatever lines I want. And I can make a plane and angle through that line also. Or I could draw a sketch, make the lines to those points. And yeah, you can. But one of the things is that it kind of depends on what you're going after. Because here, now I've got a sketch that, yeah, it makes it really easy to adjust this. If I had the dimension here, I could adjust it also. So you can make these things go from sketch to entities. Instead of doing a work point here, I could have just done a sketch and put a point there. So the question is, why would we use reference geometry versus just sketched points?
It's easier to change if you need to go back and
Yeah,
change.
sometimes it's easier to change because I can just go back to the work feature. I can turn them all on and off at the same time. And sketches, right now I've got the sketch here. It's turned on. I've got a couple sketches turned on. And so if I just leave this on here, even if it's constrained or whatever, and I create a new sketch here, where am I creating the sketch? Is the sketch going on the top of the part?
Looks like it.
No, but, well, would it be possible to use a construction line rather than a regular line for this feature? Or would that not work with the
So-
set line?
If I create this sketch here,
Right.
oh, it didn't make a new sketch. Oh, it did. It did. Never mind. So if I go here and I now draw a rectangle, whatever, and I decide that, oh, I don't like this other sketch back here, and delete that. Uh-oh, I broke some stuff. I didn't just break, of course I broke that plane, but I broke this sketch too. See, it's yellow down on the timeline. Oh, and I'm not showing it to you guys. There, sorry. See down here, the timeline, it's yellow now. That means it's broken. And if I ask it what's wrong, the sketch plane is lost. The top of the part's still there. What happened? I created a sketch on an old sketch. And so this is one of the things that if you have multiple sketches that you're not using and turning off, this can happen. And you might say, oh, that's not a big deal, but it is if you decide you need to change a sketch or you delete something and that goes away and now you break and you have to go and try and fix it. And so one of my kind of things is I only like to have one sketch turned on at a time. I use it and then move on, right? That's what I've told you guys. Don't go back and reuse the sketch. Turn on, use it, move on. I do that. When you make reference things based on a sketch, it doesn't turn off automatically. So if you are gonna use a sketch to make reference geometry and things, you have to manually turn it off. You don't want to leave that sketch turned on when you move on to the next thing. Okay, does that make sense? And so the kind of, for me, the benefit of using reference geometry is I don't have to worry about that. It's not an extra sketch in my timeline that's muddying things up. So if I can do it with other reference geometry, I'm going to do that. Because even if I have to do several things, it might still be quicker than making that sketch. But this is something that you kind of have to experiment with for yourself. I don't really care which way. Sometimes making it based on a sketch is easier because you can do multiple things at once. Okay. But sometimes you have to use the reference geometry. So a good example of that would be if I've got a cylinder sticking up out of this thing. Don't worry, it's going up, not down, so I can draw a circle. Only Claire laughed. So I want to put a hole in the side of the cylinder. And I want it to be at 45 degrees. I want it to be going in this way. Any ideas? And I want it to be a ½ inch down from the top. And I want it to go straight through the middle.
Construction plane? Or a plane at an angle, I mean.
Yeah, so if I hit the hole command and I click the side of the cylinder, it'll let me kind of stick it on here. And just like if sticking on the part, you can use these reference things to kind of give it some dimension of where you want it to be. So I think you pick here and kind of, nope. You can try and get it, but it might not go very good. So as always, it's always best to do a sketch, a circle or a hole from a sketch, right? I've said, because I can move this around, but I can't really control it as nicely. Even by picking this as, yeah, it won't even let me pick that as a thing to select. So I want to create a sketch on the side, so to have a sketch, I have to have a plane.
Tangent plane?
So I can do a tangent plane. And if I pick on the cylinder, now it's going to give me, it's going to ask me for a reference plane. So I pick this plane here, and now it's going to give me the angle from that plane. Turn all these off. So 0 is lined up with that and going away. So if I take this off here and I do reference plane here, I can see 0 starts here and it goes up that way. So 45 doesn't really matter, but depending on what you wanted to reference from, you could use that to go forward. You could even pick, oh, I guess hand picked on. It has to be a plane that's would either parallel, you know, in the same orientation. So pick that, 45. Okay. And now I can make a sketch and put my center point, right? So create a sketch. Oops, wrong plan. Sketch. There we go. And I can look and see that, yes, my sketch is on that plane that's tangent to the cylinder. So how do I make something for a hole that's halfway down there that's centered up on the cylinder?
Intersect the geometry so you get the relevant lines.
Can I intersect it? Is it crossing the sketch plane?
It should be because it's tangent. That's the definition of a tangent. It intersects that.
Well, it's touching, so let's see. I've never done that. Let's check. Intersect. You're right. So it is going to give me that exact, because it does touch at the exact one point. So it gives me that, and so I can just put a point here. So yeah, that's a good one. One that I always do is just project, just like what we did with lining up with holes. I just project the circle. Either one works though. And this one works if you're on the surface or not. If we had something that was sticking away from the surface, then I might need to do something different. But either way it kind of works. But I go there, I can just draw a line from there down, right? Or if we did the intersect, we just put a point, and then we can dimension. No, I guess a 1/4 inch. And now I can stick my hole in into the part. Sometimes when you do this, the hole will go that way. So anytime you create a hole based on just a plane and not the surface of the part, you might have to hit the flip button to get it to go in and cut. Okay. So that's that's kind of a common one to do, is the hole on the side of a cylinder. So that way you can get it cut in. And now, because I did it based on the tangent plane, I can move that around if I need to. So if I decide, oh no, I want the hole there, now it's there. I can change how it's lined up. Real easy. Okay? Any questions on that?
You could even orient it to a different side of the part if you wanted to, just
Yep.
changing the reference plane.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So another real common use of construction geometry is that when you're doing a sweep, or if you're gonna do a loft, especially if you're gonna do kind of a loft with a sweep. So I've got maybe doing something like that, and so maybe I'm doing a wire. So I do kind of a lot of wire kind of things. So yes, I can use the pipe command, and now I've got a nice little wire. But maybe if I want to do like a double, like a ribbon cable or something, or two pieces at once, instead of doing this, I want to do 2 circles there. So I don't have 2 wires running parallel to each other. But I can't do it just the what was that? The pipe command. So I need a sketch at the end of these lines. But I did these and they're not perpendicular to my planes, right? So if I create a sketch here, and I try and sweep it, it's gonna look all weird, right? Even though I had set perpendicular, it's still not making the curves right because it's not lined up with the path. It's not perpendicular to the path. Anytime you want to do a sweep, you always want to have your endpoint or your sketch plane perpendicular to the path that it's going to follow, or else you get stuff like this. And you can see that is definitely not perpendicular to the path. So one of the good ones that I use a lot is this plane along path. And now I can just pick on the path, drag the plane down to the beginning, or drag it to the end, depending on where you want to start. And now I have a sketch that's always going to be perpendicular to that path. So if I move that path, that sketch plane is going to move with it. So now I can go in here and create a sketch. Make things to equal. And then now I can sweep those. And I get a nice double wire. Okay, does that make sense? So this is one I can't do just by offsetting because the curves have to change and everything. So this is one of the times I would draw the same thing a few times and not try and use a pattern, because there's no way I could pattern this. And of course, what did I forget to do?
Constrain it.
Yeah, it's missing a bunch of constraints. This whole thing can rotate, so I probably should have drawn a line between these two. Made that horizontal. And then give me a dimension for that. And why is it still not? Ooh! So I need to make that. There we go. And make that construction. There we go. So I can adjust that. Boom. Done. All right. So that's those are the ones I use, is tangent, plane at an angle, 3 points, point along a plane. And then these other ones, the creating points, and then especially in create axes, are usually just if I have to do that to get to one of these. Okay. If I go back to that other part that I've erased. So this part is not on the origin at all. And let's say I want to do a plane down the middle of it. I can just do mid-plane. I can just pick each side of it. And it'll create a plane in the middle of those two things. I can also pick two faces that aren't parallel, and it'll bisect the angle. So like on this one here, if I want to be able to draw on this thing here and cut out this little cut here, I can just pick plane here and here, and I get a plane going down the middle of this, I can just draw that V and cut it out, right? So if I did that, it's 2 by 2 by 2. I could go in and tell it mid-plane that and that. Then I could create a sketch on that plane. How do I figure out where this edge is? Because I want it to hit that edge and that edge. So how do I figure out where this edge is on my sketch plane? How do I make this edge go onto my sketch?
Project.
Project. So I can just go there, and now I can just draw a line from, oh, I need this one too, so grab that one and project it. So I can just go from there to the midpoint. And now I extrude it. I'm gonna go symmetric all the way through, cut. And there we go. Okay. So that's kind of another way. Any questions? Yes, no. All right, so I want you to spend a little bit of time kind of playing with some of these. And I'm gonna turn on that other one with that elbow part. I'm also gonna give you a couple more parts here to work on. Okay? Any questions? And I have one in my office. I'm gonna go grab that. I'm gonna stick in there for you guys to work on. Because I'm gonna set it up, and then I want to come back.